Try not to make a scene this time, my sister breathed through her smile, the kind that shows teeth but hides knives. It's Mom's night. Don't ruin it. The room laughed too easily at nothing. Glass stems kissed, candles trembled, and the restaurant string lights turned everyone's faces softer than they deserved. I held my breath the way you do when a wave lifts right before it breaks. Everyone, my name is Arden Vale, I'm 31. I was raised to swallow heat and call it grace. To clean the mess without pointing to the hands that spilled it. To sit straight, say thank you, and make absence of complaint my proof of worth. But tonight the quiet was loud enough to choke. Mom's cake arrived, sparklers, applause, and then the smallest hands at the table went to work. My sister's son, cheeks pink with performance, lifted his bowl, looked at me with a trained bravery that wasn't his, and dumped warm soup into my lap. It spread like a stain that knew my name. He stood on his chair and shouted, "Grandpa says you don't belong here." Silence, one heartbeat, then the table cracked open with laughter. Uncle's cackle. Mom's startled giggle, quickly smothered. My father, Grandpa, shrugging as if he hadn't written the line. My sister dabbing at fake tears, whispering, "Kids repeat what they hear, don't take it personally." Steam rose. I felt it kiss my thighs, then fade. I dabbed my dress with a napkin, lifted my water glass, and smiled like a well-trained ghost. The room resumed its music. I made no scene. I made a decision. Later, alone with the lamp's amber halo and the smell of soap, I opened my laptop and pulled my name from their loan, the one I'd co-signed because family is supposed to mean shelter, not weather. 3 clicks, 2 confirmations, a final "you are sure." I was. Somewhere across town, a blinking server recorded the unraveling of a leash. By morning, his car was gone. The street held the outline of where it had slept, a rectangle of clean asphalt like a missing tooth. I poured coffee and watched the sun lift over the neighboring roofs, thin as a held breath. At 8 a.m., a knock. Not timid, not angry, measured. The kind that belongs to someone who knows they will be let in. My fingers found the lock. Metal turned. The door sighed. Light rushed the threshold, reached for my face. And the first voice I heard was not the one I expected. It was my father. Not the soft shuffle of Mom with her hands full of bakery boxes, not my sister rehearsing new excuses, but my father, standing with a look that carried both surprise and calculation. His suit jacket hung loose, the same one he wore to weddings and funerals, the smell of stale tobacco clinging to him like a second skin. "Morning," he said flatly, as if we were neighbors, not blood. His eyes traveled past me into the apartment, scanning shelves, corners, anything he might claim as his. I didn't move. "You lost something." His jaw tightened. "Don't play games, Arden. The car wasn't mine to lose," I interrupted. My voice felt steadier than my ribs. Neither was my credit. Neither was my silence. He stared at me like I'd spoken in a language he once knew but forgot. The same man who laughed when his grandson humiliated me now stood trying to measure what I'd taken back. "You don't walk away from family obligations," he said finally, low and sharp. "You don't make us look foolish." The word foolish cracked something inside me. A memory slid in, me at 16, begging him to sign a college form, him scoffing, saying I wasn't investment material. My sister had been, apparently. Always her. Always them. "I'm done being your guarantee," I whispered. For the first time, he blinked, slow, deliberate. Then he leaned closer, his shadow stretching over my door frame. "Arden, you don't understand what you've started. That loan wasn't just for a car. It was a chain, and you've broken it." He turned, footsteps heavy against the morning silence. "They'll come to you. One by one. Don't think you'll like how it ends." The hallway swallowed him. I shut the door, leaned against the wood, and felt the echo of his warning curl around me like smoke. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't afraid of endings anymore. I had just begun. The day didn't stretch gently, it snapped. By noon, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. First my sister. "Arden, seriously? Do you know what you've done?" Then a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "Be smart. Put your name back before things get ugly." I silenced each call, letting their words pile like unopened mail. Every vibration reminded me, they were scrambling, and for once, it wasn't me. By evening, Mom's number flashed. Against instinct, I answered. Her voice was hushed, but sharp enough to cut. Why would you humiliate us like this? Your sister needs stability, not sabotage. Stability. My laugh was small and bitter. You mean the car I paid for, the bills I covered, the roof I helped patch while she lived rent-free? That kind of stability. Her silence was heavy. Then came the line I knew was rehearsed. Family doesn't keep score, Arden. I closed my eyes, picturing soup dripping down my dress, their laughter circling like vultures. No, Mom. Family doesn't keep score because family doesn't make you beg to belong. Click. She ended it. The apartment went quiet, save for the tick of my kitchen clock. I leaned on the counter, realizing their panic wasn't just about money. It was about control slipping from their hands, about me stepping outside the role they'd written. As the sky darkened, I opened my notebook, a habit I'd abandoned years ago. I wrote down every debt, every favor I had swallowed. The list filled quickly, each line its own small betrayal. At the bottom, I wrote, "This is not revenge. This is release." Then came the knock again. Louder, quicker, insistent. My stomach clenched, but I moved. The door opened to reveal not my father this time, but my sister, her face streaked with tears that looked painted on. "You don't understand," she hissed, voice trembling. "You've put everything at risk. They'll come for me, but it'll fall on you." Her words were frantic, but her eyes? Calculating. And in that flicker, I realized, she wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid of what I'd uncover next. Her hands clutched the frame like she wanted to rip the door off its hinges, but I stood still, blocking her way. My sister had always been a master of theater, cry when convenient, scream when cornered, charm when in need. But I knew the difference between fear and performance. This was performance. "You need to fix this, Arden," she pleaded, her voice cracking on cue. "The bank. Dad, everyone's furious. If you don't put your name back, we'll lose everything." I let the words settle, each one carefully placed to hit where guilt used to live in me. But guilt had packed its bags the night soup soaked my dress. "You'll lose everything," I corrected softly. "Not we." Her mask slipped for a moment, jaw tightening, eyes narrowing, the crocodile tears forgotten. "You think you're above us now? You think because you finally said no, you're free? That loan isn't the only thing tying us together." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "You're right. Blood ties us. But blood has drowned me long enough." Her breath hitched. She tried to step inside, but I held the door, my grip steady. That's when her threat dropped, raw and unpolished. "Dad said if you don't fix this, he'll tell everyone what you did when you were 19. The words slammed into me. Memories I'd buried rattled at the surface. A mistake, a night of desperation, twisted and repurposed into a weapon they'd kept sharpened for years. My family never forgot, not out of love, but out of strategy. I steadied myself, exhaling slow. "Tell them," I said finally. "Shout it from the rooftops if it buys you sleep. I'm done paying for silence." Her face faltered, her script ruined. For once, she didn't have a line prepared. She stumbled back, muttering, "You'll regret this." The hallway swallowed her words. I closed the door and pressed my palm to the cool wood. My heart raced, but beneath it was something steadier, something I hadn't felt in years: power. They wanted me to drown in shame. But I had just learned how to swim. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the apartment felt like a footstep, every car door outside like a summons. But beneath the unease, a strange clarity burned. I wasn't cornered anymore, they were. By morning, my email was flooded. Notices of urgent matters from the bank. Thinly veiled threats wrapped in polite language. And then, tucked between them, a message from an unfamiliar sender. "I think you should know what your family signed in your name." My pulse spiked. Attached was a PDF, pages of contracts, hidden clauses, signatures forged with mine. I scrolled, my stomach twisting. It wasn't just the car loan. They had stacked debts like bricks on my back, assuming I'd never look closely, assuming I'd carry it all until I collapsed. The betrayal wasn't a single act. It was an architecture. I printed the documents, spread them across my table. Each sheet was a confession, each number a lie. I traced the ink with my fingers, remembering birthdays where my gifts had been ridiculed, holidays where my presence was tolerated but never welcomed. I realized this wasn't just about money, it was about how they had written me into their story as the expendable one. At noon, another knock. This time softer, hesitant. I opened the door to find Mom, her eyes swollen, holding a casserole dish like a peace offering. "Sweetheart," she whispered, stepping inside without waiting for permission. "Let's sit. Let's talk. You're angry, I understand, but families go through storms." I studied her, the woman who once brushed my hair before school, who now sat at my table pretending the fire wasn't already burning the house down. "Storms don't forge signatures," I said, sliding the papers across to her. "Storms don't dump soup in laps and laugh." Her hands trembled over the pages. Her lips moved but no words came out. For the first time, Mom didn't have a script either. The silence was thick, almost holy. Then she whispered, "Your father, he made us sign. He said you'd never fight back." I leaned forward, voice steady. "He was wrong." Her eyes filled, not with tears of sorrow, but of fear. And in that moment, I knew, the storm had only begun to turn. Mom's hands shook as she gathered the papers, trying to make sense of what I had laid bare. Her wedding ring clinked against the table, a sound that once meant stability but now felt like chains rattling. "Arden," she whispered, her voice breaking. "We thought you'd forgive. You always forgive." That was the blueprint of my life, me as the family's safety net, the one who bent so no one else broke. But something inside me had hardened. "I did forgive," I said quietly. "Over and over, until forgiveness turned into erasure. You didn't want a daughter. You wanted collateral." Her face crumpled, but I noticed she didn't deny it. She only lowered her gaze, as though shame was easier than honesty. Before I could say more, my phone buzzed. A text from my father: "You've made this messy. Meet me tonight. Alone. 9 p.m. You know the place." The place. I knew exactly where, his office above the auto shop, the one that always smelled of gasoline and secrecy. Mom glanced at the screen, then back at me. Her lips parted, but no words left. Instead, she pressed the casserole dish closer to me, like food could be a truce. By nightfall, I found myself outside that office. The air was heavy with oil and betrayal. I pushed the door open to find him waiting behind his desk, leaning back in his chair like a king daring his subject to revolt. "You've cost us more than you know," he said, lighting a cigarette, the tip glowing in the dim room. "But you still have a chance to fix this." "Fix?" I asked. "You mean surrender?" He smirked. "Call it what you want. Sign back on, or I'll take what you've hidden all these years. Every secret, every slip, you won't survive the telling." I looked at him, the man who raised me with silence sharper than words, who weaponized my mistakes. My fear pulsed, but something else pressed harder: resolve. "I won't sign," I said, steady. "Not tonight. Not ever." His smirk faded. Smoke coiled between us, but the real fire was only beginning to burn. The silence after my refusal was thick, broken only by the faint hum of the fluorescent light above us. My father's cigarette ash trembled, then dropped into the tray. His eyes narrowed, not angry, not yet, but calculating, the way a hunter watches prey circle closer to the trap. "You think this is courage," he said slowly. "But what you've done is war. And wars aren't won by principle, Arden. They are won by sacrifice." I met his gaze, steady. "Then maybe it's time you start sacrificing." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, gone as quickly as it came. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Do you even realize what you've uncovered? Those papers you waved at your mother, those are only the surface. We've built more than you can dismantle." I took a step closer, my pulse hammering. "Maybe. But one thread undone can unravel the whole tapestry. And I've got the first thread." His jaw clenched, the cigarette stubbed out with unnecessary force. "You'll regret this." I turned to leave, but before my hand reached the door, his voice followed, sharper, colder. "You walk away now, and you'll never be family again." The words pierced, but instead of pain, I felt release. I paused, let the weight of them hang in the air, then answered without turning back: "Family left me a long time ago." Outside, the night air was crisp, carrying the tang of oil and rust. My steps echoed against the empty street. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt untethered. By the time I reached home, my inbox had another message, from the same unknown sender. You've only seen the beginning. Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. downtown library. I'll show you the rest. I stared at the words, heart racing. Whoever this person was, they held keys my family thought were buried forever. For the first time, I wasn't dreading morning. I was waiting for it, like a curtain about to rise on a stage they'd never control again. Tomorrow, the truth would have its voice. And it would be louder than their laughter ever was. The library was nearly empty the next morning, sunlight pooling across long wooden tables. I arrived early, nerves coiled tight, scanning faces until one man approached, gray suit, briefcase, eyes that studied without judgment. "You're Arden?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He slid a folder across the table. "I handled some of your father's contracts years ago. When I saw your name forged, I knew you'd need proof." My hands trembled as I opened it. Pages of signed agreements, loans laid with lies, even property transfers, all with my signature replicated in ink I never touched. It was bigger than I imagined. My family hadn't just used me, they'd built their foundation on my silence. "You take this to the bank, to the courts, they'll have nothing left," he said. The weight of the folder felt heavier than any debt I'd ever carried. Not because of fear, because it was freedom. That evening, I returned to my apartment. Mom was waiting outside my door, face pale. "Arden, please, your father says you'll destroy us. Tell me it isn't true." I looked at her, the woman who had chosen convenience over me, who let laughter fill the room when soup stained my lap. I felt a tenderness, but it wasn't surrender. It was clarity. "I'm not destroying you," I said softly. "I'm setting myself free. Whatever happens next, it's the truth that decided it." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, she didn't reach to touch me. She stepped back, as if she knew I no longer belonged in their shadow. That night, I placed the folder neatly into an envelope, addressed it, and set it on my desk. Tomorrow, it would move from my hands into justice's. I stood by the window, city lights flickering like scattered stars, and breathed for the first time without weight pressing on my chest. They thought shame would keep me chained. They thought fear would keep me quiet. But I had chosen a different ending, an ending written in my own ink. And as the night deepened, I whispered the final word to myself.